Hello and welcome to HighCast. This episode of HighCast is recorded in the studios of Highland FM. To find out more about volunteering and more, go to highlandfm.org.au. This episode is brought to you by Rad Solutions. Rad Solutions is a boutique consultancy offering youth engagement and strategic planning services. To find out more about Rad Solutions, go to radsolutions.com.au. Our guest today is Mr. Warrren Turner. Warrren is the Local Controller of Wingecarribee SES, an entrepreneur and a keen cyclist. Welcome, Warrren.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for having me on your podcast.
Yeah, episode 002.
Excellent.
I've numbered them at 00 in anticipation that I'll get up into the thousands.
The big digits, yeah.
That's right. That's what I do. So you're here today to have a chat. But the things that I would like to know are things about SES, some stuff about how you found yourself in the Highlands, and maybe some little things about what you think are the best things about the Highlands and how we might improve in the future.
Right, yeah, that's a lot of questions there. Which one do you want me to start on?
All right, if you could see Warren's face right now. Luckily, this is a podcast, not a video cast, because you got the two ugliest heads in the room right here, right now. Warren was not impressed. Well, I said two. I wasn't just inferring it was yours. It was the two of us. So first of all, Wingecarribee SES is recruiting.
It is. At this stage, we recruit twice a year, and we are in the processes of starting, well, we have started the recruitment and starting our new recruits in March. The Wingecarribee SES is a very exciting place.
Exciting.
Trying to sell it as much as possible. But we're very interested in all aspects of people coming along, and even if you're not sure, come along and talk to us. We can offer you suggestions of where you can help the community in emergency situations.
So how did you get involved?
Well, that's probably, I forget, to be honest.
Really?
But there was a very big storm down. I used to live down along the coast, and there was a very big storm, and the street next to us, a roof blew off a house. And a whole lot of SES people came and helped the resident out, and I thought it's about time I did something like that and gave back to the community.
So it took someone else's tragedy for your moment.
Yes, very much so, unfortunately. It was something, I was in the Scouts as a teenager, and I always wanted to continue on from the Scouts into emergency side of things. In those days, the state emergency service was very primitive, but I ended up going to university and career-based and forgot about that fact that the volunteer services were there.
So you didn't follow your dream?
I did. University was a dream as well. Depends which dream it was.
Multiple dreams. Ladies and gentlemen, you too can have multiple dreams if you join the SES.
But yeah, that life's long, so I made sure I've done all the things I wanted to do.
There's a good life lesson. Life is long. Do everything that you can do.
Absolutely, yeah.
And what kind of people, like you mentioned, there's lots of roles. Are you looking for anyone in particular?
In particular, we're looking for people to go out into the field, and those can be anything from storm assistance to actual rescue work. The Wingecarribee SES is a very unique unit in as much that we also in charge of primary rescue for the local government area.
And look, I know what primary rescue means. What does primary rescue mean?
I was going to explain that.
Oh, there we go. Explain it, please.
A good segue. The New South Wales state government allocates certain areas for an agency to be the primary rescue response. So in Wollongong, for example, it would be fire and rescue. In Nowra, it's ambulance rescue. And in Wingecarribee, it's New South Wales SES as the rescue agency. And it does vary throughout the state. And these are appointed based on your training, your equipment, the type of vehicles you've got. There's a whole bunch of criteria that enables us to hold the rescue qualifications for this area.
So, go on, please.
And that's a big part of what we do. For example, in 2017, we did 111 rescues. So that's just over 2 rescues a week, which is a significant load for volunteers.
And do you... So when I went on the radio last time we were recruiting, one of the questions that the presenter asked me around rescue was, is it for everyone? Is it difficult? Do you need to really consider things about yourself before you get involved in rescue?
It's not for everyone, and I'm not selling it for everyone. It's a very it can be very traumatic seeing people in pain, and it can be very difficult. So not everyone wants to do that. And fortunately for our unit, the Wingecarribee SES, you're not confined to having to do rescue. There's certainly storm work and also community engagement. There's lots of aspects of the emergency service that you are able to work in without actually getting involved in the trauma side of the rescue.
So there is essentially a spot for everyone.
That used to be the catchphrase.
There you go.
It is possible that we can find a job for most people. It is a emergency service. There are standard criteria that you do have to meet, and some of those might be how to work a radio, a first aid certificate, and others less significant options, but still important to each of the volunteers.
And what would be your pitch if you had to tell people from your experience what's the best part of volunteering? What have you got out of this?
I've got many things out of it. It's exciting. It's challenging. I learn something every day. But some of the feedback you get from residents of houses, I remember there was a fairly big storm at one event, and I went to a fairly old gentleman's house, and his aerial blew off the roof. And
couldn't watch TV?
He couldn't watch TV.
Jeez,
but he was very stressed.
That's an emergency.
But he was very stressed over the incident. Even though it was fairly minor to us, it was very significant for him. And once we fixed his problem, he got out his wallet and he goes, "How much do I owe you?" And I said, "This is a free service. And we're just volunteers and we'll come and do that for you." And the big smile that went on his face, and that is worth everything, just to see that.
So there was an interesting article in the Sydney Morning Herald about a month ago, and the gist of it was is that volunteering is bad because it creates a precedent that things like the State Emergency Service and other initiatives that are similar, you get away with not funding them to the level that they should be funded. Do you think that volunteers should be providing an emergency service? Didn't think I'd be asking these questions, did you?
That's a tough one. I think definitely the volunteers should be or can be providing emergency service. There is a lot of discussion of how rescue is done, but there's a lot of aspects to emergencies, and it's not necessarily a car crash, but a roof blowing off a house is also an emergency. And it's, even though it's a volunteer service, it does provide a significant capability for the New South Wales government with minimal cost. And as far as providing the gear that we need to do our jobs, the State Emergency Service as a headquarters provides us with a tremendous amount of equipment, and good equipment too, which rivals much of the other services. So saying that, I think, yes, there's definitely a place for volunteers in emergency work.
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? Because in a perfect world, government would be able to fund everything. But I mentioned this last time I spoke on this podcast. In reality, that's never going to happen. No, unless, ladies and gentlemen, you want to be taxed more. I think you would immediately throw your whatever device you're listening to this on across the room if the proposal was you would be taxed more. But then it falls on individuals like Warrren and myself to provide that service. So what is it that volunteers should get out of providing that service, apart from the altruistic stuff that you get?
The volunteers, if they get to learn something or can further their career, they do benefit considerably from the service. At a previous SES unit that I was at, many, and that many would be in the size of 15 to 20, have continued on into emergency management in other emergency services from the learnings that they've had through the SES unit. And the big winner in that is that the emergency services are gaining great personnel from the basic training that they are receiving in the State Emergency Service.
There you go. You heard it right here. First, ladies and gentlemen, on HighCast, we'll go to a little bit of music from Mr. P, and then we'll come back and we'll find out how Warrren runs an international business from the Highlands, and what he thinks is the bee's knees about the Southern Highlands. This is Mr. P. He featured a little bit last week on the program. And if you are a local artist, there he is. If you're a local artist and would like to... Mr. P, you are listening to HighCast with me, Dave, and I've got in the studio with me Warrren Turner, local controller of the SES, an entrepreneur and a Highlands resident. How do you run an international business from the Highlands?
It's based on the internet and high-speed internet. Sadly, the Highlands hasn't got high-speed internet.
Okay, good. Here we go. I've hit a hot topic. So, how? Tell me more.
The concept of the NBN and fibre to the node doesn't really work for small business. It may work for residential. It's just not working. It's slow, and it was very difficult to get connected.
Okay.
And to run a business, we use things like Skype, where we can communicate with the other members of our team. And we have team members all over the world, and it becomes very difficult when you've got poor internet performance.
So on my radio program, for those of you eclectic, Wednesday evening, Highland FM 107.1, I've talked a lot about the NBN and how unfortunately it hasn't delivered what was promised. What do we do about it? Do we vote with our feet? Do we vote with our wallets? How do we move on this?
We can't vote with our feet. We probably could vote with our wallets, but the backlog on NBN connections is so great that even if you paid loads of money, you still would have to wait for a better connection. The ISPs, or internet service providers, they're hamstrung. They can't do much. It's the NBN co it's just not working. The fibre to the node, which I thought probably would have been a reasonable solution, has really failed us. Coming from the coast where we had fibre to the house and getting very spoiled, and moving up to the Highlands 18 months ago, realising that the fibre to the node just does not work for small business.
So I've talked a lot on my radio program about how you look at the Highlands in 20 years' time, and what's it going to be? Is it going to be agricultural? Is it going to be based around health? Is it going to be based around technology, or is it going to be doctors, lawyers, people like yourselves running businesses that are connected around the world, or is it all of that? And without like top quality telecommunications, can you do any of those? You probably can't.
No, you can't. And on today's standards, we're very much limited to the capacity that the internet or broadband can deliver for us. And as you said, medical is a big part of the Highlands. There's a lot of people who telecommute, and without that capability, I'm not sure what's going to happen in the Highlands. But one of the saving things, and it will be costly, is the promotion of 5G that Telstra is about to release this year, which will give us capacities above that of the NBN, but I think it will be expensive.
So in places in the United States, for example, small counties are building their own networks. Is that achievable in a place like the Wingecarribee? And not putting it, not suggesting you're a telecommunications engineer or anything, but should that be something that we put on the table with council and just say, hey, look, this NBN's not good enough for us. What are we going to do about it as a community?
We have to action this, and to be honest, I have not sure the best way to go about it. I think wireless is going to overtake that of the broadband on the NBN, but it's being able to provide that cheaply to the residents and to the small businesses. And if they can achieve that, anybody could do it. Any entrepreneur might want to take that on.
So how vocal do we need to be to our state and local representatives? For someone like yourself who is running an international business from the Wingecarribee, is this a showstopper, or is this a real...
It's not a showstopper. It's slowing us down. It's reducing our ability to be better and make the Highlands or Southern Highlands better, because we are limited to what we can achieve because of the slow broadband. As far as political side, I have personally gone to our local member, both state, federal, been to the Ombudsman, been through the ISP and NBN Co, and with no avail of any progress to improve what's being delivered.
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first. Political activism is dead. You can't do anything. The NBN is in such a slow rollout, nothing will happen until they finish, and I think the forecast for that is another couple of years. So okay,
we're going to have to sit on our hands until then.
Okay, so you're for those of you who don't know, Warrren and I have worked together at the SES for almost 2 years now. Warren's quite a pragmatic person. If you could do things apart from sitting on your hands in the Highlands, what kind of things would you do to improve the Highlands?
One of the big things that would improve the Highlands is improve the Illawarra Highway, particularly through Mossvale.
Hey, there you go.
It is a bottleneck, and any of you who drive down through Argyle Street would know that if you do that at, say, 3 o'clock on a school day, you will spend 45 minutes getting through Mossvale just alone. And saying that we, the Wingecarribee SES, that is, we have a second shed in Mossvale, and to get to our emergency truck to mobilise it for a rescue, we've got to go down Argyle Street to get there. And that just delays our response time to achieving a better result for the community.
So now you've highlighted the problem. What's the solution?
Bypass Mossvale. But from my knowledge, though, the Department of Main Roads or whoever it is who looks after it, it has no plans to bypass or move the highway through to a different location outside Mossvale.
It's an interesting conundrum, and I talked to on the weekend, and hopefully I'll get them on this podcast. Some of the representatives from what are they called? I can't recall the organisation which they represent. Highlands Progress, perhaps, and they were putting together a petition around the proposed upgrades to Station Street. And I said to them, look, I don't have any problems with people opposing things, but what are you proposing instead? So they're saying, you know what I'm talking about, the redevelopment of Station Street in Barrel.
Yep.
And I said, okay, sure, right? You've got some problems with it, but what are you going to do? Like, what's the other solution? And I'm hoping they'll come on this program because I'd like to hear what they've got to say. But we've got to do something because it's crazy.
Well, again, there's the same problem in Barrel. The traffic through Barrel, whether it's the bypass or right through the main street, it is difficult to get through Barrel, and it's the same with Mossvale, Mittagong. It's just we're playing catch up in the roads.
So I'm a big believer in planning 30 years out. So whether it's MBN, what roads, whatever it might be, what does the Highlands to you look like in 30 years' time?
Well, my family's been in the Highlands for 30 years, so I know what it was 30 years ago. And although it has changed, it's still the same. Mossvale has some new shops. It looks a little bit different, but it's still the same.
Shops.
and Barrel, it's been commoditised by the main shopping chains. It has changed, but essentially it's still the same. The council, I think, needs to get a bit behind this and do a forward projection on what it sees as the Highlands should be in 30 years' time. And one of the targets is get onto those roads. Those roads are bad.
I'm also a big proponent of people getting involved in the democratic process. Is being an elected official on your radar for the future?
No.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. No. But never trust a politician. So
the SES keeps me busy enough. It's a second career.
You've got it straight. You got the straight answers already prepared.
Yes. No, the SES does keep me very busy. It as a volunteer, it does contribute for me personally, probably at least 40 hours a month, if not more, on top of a job where we're working internationally and odd hours and trying to keep a family life. It's there's no spare time.
So you heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Warrren will not run as an elected representative.
Never.
What is it? What did Tony Abbott say? Dead, buried, cremated?
Yes. It's all of that.
Put it in writing. Eat the piece of paper.
No, it's not going to happen.
Not going to happen. What would you suggest to people that might be considering getting involved in the democratic process in the Wingecarribee?
Be dynamic.
Be dynamic. Wow, there you go.
Take the risk and achieve something to improve the Southern Highlands.
You are the last thing I wanted to talk about. You're a keen cyclist, but you're not a road cyclist. You're an online cyclist.
That's correct. Yes.
So tell the audience about online cycling.
Online cycling is like a game. You need some special equipment, and the equipment's called a power trainer. And through the marvels of computer engineering and the internet,
The internet. So
it comes back.
It's all about the internet, really.
I am a technocrat, so you can actually ride your bike. It feels like you're out on the road. When you go up a hill, it loads up your back wheel, and it is just a great way of exercising and challenging yourself and with others around the world. So you're not riding by yourself, you're riding in groups. And I have a group that rides with me, and there's one who's in the Isle of Man, another one over in the US, another one down in Victoria, and we commonly ride at the same time every day, but it is a virtual ride. But I can assure you it gives you as good or even better workout than riding on the road, and it is much safer.
So could you petition to get the jib entered into the program? A virtual jib.
A virtual jib. Not on the one that I use, but I believe there's actually an Australian. They're building an Australian version.
Oh, that's awesome!
And I know the Tour Down Under will be available on that one.
There you go. That's really cool.
Right around Adelaide.
But you did participate in the Highlands one.
The Barrel Classic.
That's right.
Yes.
Did you win?
No. It's just a fun day out on the bike.
If you did happen to win and you are listening to this podcast, get in touch with me via Facebook. I'd love to talk to you and find out how you beat Warrren.
And your opinion on virtual cycling.
Yeah, actually that would be really cool. Find out more about virtual cycling. Is there anything else that you would like to get across to the listeners?
Come and join us at Wingecarribee SES. There's actually another event that we're going to promote very shortly. It's on the 27th of March, and that is a night for women only to learn how to be resilient in storms. So when you get a storm warning, what to do, and one of the big things that we often get called out to is runaway trampolines. The wind catches them and blows away, bounces off roofs, causes damage to other people's roofs. So we will teach you how to tie a trampoline down, how to do sandbags, first aid, what to do if you come across a road crash. These are some of the things that we will be sharing with the women of the Wingecarribee. The invites will go out on our Wingecarribee Facebook page. So go on there and wait for the advertisement, which will be coming up probably in the next couple of weeks. Put your name down as an interested party. We'll get back to you, and it is a really great night for the women. And above all, the food will be excellent.
Okay. And last but not least, how do people find out about it, and where do they sign up and get in contact?
Okay, so if you go to the New South Wales SES page, the main corporate page, there is a link on there where you can enrol for any of the SESs, but in particular we are under the Wingecarribee SES, not the Southern Highlands. The Southern Highlands SES is actually down at Goulburn, which is actually Southern Tablelands. Go figure that one. But if you want to enrol with us, and I encourage you to do so, come to Wingecarribee SES and press that you're interested in volunteering.
Fantastic. Well, thanks very much for coming on today.
Pleasure.
And if you would like to get involved with SES, please go through either Facebook, through the Wingecarribee SES Facebook site, all the places that Warrren just mentioned, but get involved. I think Warren's given a really good representation of the SES. This has been HighCast with episode 002 with Warrren Turner. And if you know someone interesting or are interesting yourself, get in touch with me on Facebook via HighCast, and I'd love to have you on. Or as well, if you are a local artist like Mr. P and you want to play your music, let me know as well. It'd be great to have you on. We will see you next time.